are building a bakery using Get to Work. So this is a retail lot, but I built it as a bakery. So the idea being that if you have a sim who's like really high in baking, I believe comes with Get to Work, which is annoying. But because that really should be a base game skill. But it is a 3-story building in Willow Creek, and it has 2 one-bedroom apartments on top of it because I love building multi-use lots, even though The Sims 4 will not let me use my multi-use lots. I like doing them. And so because Willow Creek is a world that was like heavily inspired by the French Quarter, and it wasn't heavily inspired by the French Quarter. It was heavily inspired by New Orleans. And it's very obvious. And in fact, these buildings that they have here are like EA's take on the French Quarter. But I decided to go with like an all pack build. It is a lot of packs. It's a lot of packs. And I even like threw in a lamp from high school years at the very end because I built this a long time before high school years came out. But I was going back through and like touching up the lighting, which is something I like to do lately, is just make sure that like my lighting makes sense in all the areas. But you can see basically it also has this like outdoor courtyard space. The one annoying thing I realized about it being a retail, you could also use this cafe. I believe it has all the cafe items. I forgot to double check, but it has the basics, so you could easily add in whatever it's lacking. Is that, I guess because no one owned it when I was playtesting it, like Sims don't spawn on it unless someone owns it. So you will need like a Sim who, if you want to have your Sim like go here and buy baked goods, you're gonna have to have a Sim who owns it. I don't like that you can't like, there's surely a mod that does that, but it doesn't like NPC populate whoever owns it. I guess that's how it gets to work. I've only played it the other way where I've already had a Sim who owned it. It is rather expensive to purchase because I actually built it for my legacy family, thinking that like this is the second bakery I've built for my legacy family and then overdone, and I need to just buy an empty lot with the money they have and actually build it up that way instead of trying to like build them the way I normally build, because it's quite pricey, but you could always empty out the apartments and that would make it a lot more in budget. But I think it's also a really great lot if you want to like just have someone own it, just cheat in money for them and have your Sims visit and buy baked goods. I think that'd be really fun. But you can see here that we're working on kind of getting the front windows done. I wanted like pink and green, and it didn't quite come out as pink and green as I want. It's a little pink and green, but like the building I found was like very vibrant pink, but that's just not an option we have right now in The Sims 4. But you can see that it has that French Quarter kind of style balconies, and that they go all the way up, and they have those kind of like flimsy French Quarter like railings. And this is a build that I feel like unfortunately suffers extremely from the inability to paint ceilings, because those should be like the same color as the metal, right? They should be like, or like dark concrete, not bright white. And it made me crazy when I was taking screenshots because EA won't let us paint ceilings, or that they don't even like take the color of the floor or something. Like it is a perpetual annoyance about The Sims 4 to me, but we just live with it. It looks good from, some angle. I actually think it looks better from the angles you're generally playing from, because you generally play from a top-down view. But here we added in the chairs and tables from Paranormal Stuff because those have like perfect cafe feel. And then I wanted it to have a lot of those hanging plants you see in the French Quarter, to just bring in kind of those vibes. I like repeat the street lamps. It's annoying because the street lamps on the street light up, but these don't. But anyway, it's fine. It works out in the end. But it does, like, I feel like has a really nice like street vibe, and I feel like it really came through. I add in these grates. I tried to make it really detailed just so that it would feel really like alive. But I wanted it to have that southern kind of like overgrown plant feeling. And I think they're from Discover University? Is that no, they're from not Tribal, Jungle Adventure. These like sidewalk details, I feel like really added a lot to it. And now we're moving on to the interior, which is mostly like displays. I did have a sim come in and bake a bunch of stuff, and I think most of it should be so like if your sim is far enough in the culinary career, like their food doesn't go bad. So I think most of it is that, but not all of it. So you're gonna have to watch that. But if you want, you can always restock this from you can go in the gallery and find a lot of people have like builds that have all the perfect food like that. I love this poster. I just feel like it made it really feel like it was something you would like see in a bakery. But also, if you want to turn this into like a restaurant and sell baked goods that way, I don't think you can with Dine Out sell baked goods. I don't think they're on any of the menus. But if instead of a bakery, you want to turn it into like a restaurant, I do put the chef's like kitchen in here so that it has everything that you would need if you want to use it as a restaurant instead. I do try and make my builds like flexible like that, where either you can you can use it as a cafe, you can use it as a restaurant. Because depending on what packs you have, that might be more useful, or what you want to do in your gameplay. I did have the cupcake machine in here, but I got mad about it and took it out. So I really recommend, because it's so huge, and like you can size it down, which probably what I should have done. But I think I just had a rage delete moment and rage deleted the cupcake machine. I used it to like bake a bunch of cupcakes, and then I delete it later in the build. Because I know it's like I understand, as someone who was like an OG Sims player, right? I get the whimsy of the Sims. I get what we were going for, that the Sims did often have these really like kooky animations in the past, and they were less like realistic. But the cupcake machine is just like, I think not the place for it, if it makes sense, because it just, I don't know. It's something you want too frequently, and you like, it's just annoying. So there is a mod that lets you bake cupcakes in ovens, and I highly recommend that. If you're someone who wants to bake cupcakes, I recommend, and you're not on console, I'm sorry, console. But if you're not on console, also, I love this tile. I don't remember, it's from Get Together, but it gave it that really, that like Italian, like super detailed, like like in some like Italian bakeries. And you will see this kind of in the French Quarter. I don't remember. I was a very small child when I was in the French Quarter. But like you'll see this kind of tile, and then the green walls. I love these green walls. So I finally got the green and pink, I feel like, across in here. And then we add in a lot of these signs to kind of give it a little bit more detail. And then we just put tons. I wanted to have, how like I feel like the older, more like family owned but older establishments have a lot of decorations on the walls generally. Like, if it's newer, it's like a new corporate thing, or even just like it's something that's been built in the last 10-20 years. I think they tend to lean towards the minimalism, or it's very branded, you know what I mean? Where like everything, I wanted this more to feel like someone's family has owned this for like 100 years. And so like, obviously you can't take down the thing that great Aunt Joan put up. So I use a lot of these really cluttered family things, and just wanted to have a lot of that historical feel, really. I wanted it to feel like this sort of bakery that like it is the local neighborhood bakery, but it's also become like an institution. Let me move on to just putting in more seating. You will not lack. This is what I was saying is a little annoying, that like it doesn't seem to populate very many Sims, because, and there, again, I hate to like harp on mods, because I know some people do play on console, especially people who download builds, I imagine might be playing on console, but there are like mods that I think would help with that. Here it looks in winter, which felt like wildly inappropriate because it's definitely built for like subtropical climates. But I wish you could, I don't know, because I don't play a lot, though I did play when I was trying to play test this like a whole day, like real life day with my legacy family, which was nice. I should build more things for them because it's the only time I get around to playing the game. But like there should not be snow. I wish I could tweak seasons. I like having seasons. I think it makes the like especially the weather gives a lot of realism to the game, but you should be able to tweak that. I should be able to make it not snow in Willow Creek because Willow Creek should not have snow. I did a little layering of curtains in here too to get kind of the effect I wanted. I used those island living curtains over the paranormal stuff curtains. And here's where I was talking about we just put tons and tons of baked goods in, but I really love the way it turned out um, with these baskets and then like sizing some things down. It just really felt like I do feel like I took some unintentional like Brazilian inspiration because a lot of times if you go into the bakeries here, they're kind of set up more like this with stuff out, whereas I think if this were in the US, they would be a little bit more like set behind the counter. But I feel like it gave it a really fun feel. That like your Sims could walk in and browse and like pick up cupcakes for their kid's birthday. I use a lot of these. I imagine this being like kombucha or something like, or some sort of local soda, Barks. You know, if we're going for the New Orleans vibe, that your Sims could pick up. But I just, like I think in my head, I wanted these to be jam, but oh man. And I built this like so I think I've mentioned on some of the other builds. I have a huge backlog of builds. And so I didn't even think you could like instead of the kombucha put in some of the jams from country or like if your Sims are like your Sims could make the jams and sell them as part of the bakery. That would be really fun. Um, I do really like I haven't gotten to do much of the get to work gameplay. I played around with it like right when I bought The Sims 4 and then I got super sucked into building. But The Sims 2 Back to Business was like my favorite DLC in The Sims. Now, I never owned cuz like I, was like a high school student and then a college student when like The Sims and Sims 2 were out. I think Sims 2 was the beginning of college for me, and now we know that I'm old. Um, but so like I never had money to buy all the DLC. This is the one advantage of being like an older simmer is you have older simmer income. And I'm really happy with how this kitchen came out. I feel like I put a lot of detail in, even though that's like a backspace. I really am proud of myself that I put more detail into it. I've discovered it's not even about like cluttering. I've realized like builds don't have to. I don't really like my builds to be cluttered, but making sure you have all those details in, I think really does change uh like a build. Like making sure putting in like I put some stains even on the pavement by the grates where like, like rainwater would be. I feel like those things, like the more you get those details in, the better your builds feel. And it's still something I don't think I'm perfect at, but I feel like I can see that I've gotten better. I even like I don't end up showing it because it's not very like screenshot worthy, but I put some like graffiti on the back of the building and I add some like trash cans back there, that sort of thing. But we have moved on. So like I said, so that's the bakery downstairs, tons of seating, tons of baked goods, chef kitchen. I do think I realized there's not a cappuccino coffee maker, but you could easily fit it into that counter. And then upstairs, I built two French Quarter inspired, but like imagine these are heavily remodeled, right? Because this is like peak real estate nowadays. Heavily remodeled apartments, but I wanted them to each have their own character. So this first one has more of like a boho, not really cottage core, but like kind of like a um I want like country boho, if that makes sense. But just a softer feel. I wanted this one to have a softer feel to it. So you see that like I decided to go with the I don't remember. I never remember if they're the cottage living or the country. I think this might be the country kit. We use this more country style kitchen and more classic chairs. But then when we get to the decorations end up being very like kind of more boho styled, more modern boho kind of look. But I also wanted them to kind of have like a little bit of that city living feel with the different decorations from like this couch, for example. decoration. Well, the couch is really kind of boho, but like bright and colorful and from like all over the world. Like this is a person who really likes to travel or like is really really into eat pray love. Like almost in a cliche way, you know, but that's like really the person I imagine here is the person who read Eat Pray Love, and like that's their like dream now, not the person who I like Eat Pray Love, but I like it cautiously, if that makes sense. I don't know. Like I see some, I think it's slightly problematic at the same time it's really the truth, even if I enjoyed the book. But I feel like this is being the person who like read Eat, Pray, Love and saw nothing problematic about it whatsoever. It's just all in on Eat, Pray, Love. But I wanted it to be kind of this mix of like modern world. Like if you walked into a world market, honestly, I think that's really what I had in mind. I don't know if you're not familiar. I think that's like US only store, and I barely even knew it in the US. But it's like it's a like home decor store, but they pride themselves on having its world market. So they're supposed to have like international inspirations, but they end up being really kind of in that same way, you know, in the way that like American Mexican food is not Mexican food, their furniture is the world equivalent of Mexican food. But this is what I was at. I tried to add some like make these like entry spaces a little bit like gross like they are. Because you know, like if you live in an apartment building, even if it's a nice apartment building like this, there's always those spaces that like, you know, like I live in a decent apartment building and sure the hallway is well kept, but it also has that like terrible apartment hallway feel. Um, but the idea being that these are apartments that are like you probably own or you're renting and like never leaving, that these are very like invested in apartments. Also, I really just love decorating apartments. I think that's why I keep putting them on top of my bakeries and cafes and all. I didn't put one on top of my Art Deco restaurant, to be honest. That one is just that build is gonna be an Instagram only. I like lost. This is the problem with not posting your builds for a long time is I've lost a bunch of footage, so I have to figure out how I'm gonna do it. I think I might just make shorts of like tours of them. Maybe how we do it. But I have an Art Deco restaurant that I have learned to finally just leave the upstairs. But I like decorating apartments, and The Sims doesn't give you a lot of like this one bedroom size apartment. We really only have that one building because even the second building in Evergreen Harbor, the apartments are too big. But like we just don't have a lot of option for this like cozy one bedroom apartment because that was kind of what I was going for here. Um, the idea being that like it's nice, it's an expensive apartment, a one bedroom apartment in like downtown New Orleans, downtown Willow Creek, let's say, is gonna run you a lot of money. So like you're gonna take care of it, but it's also very cozy and small. Um, and I do kind of decorate them in no, I guess the kitchen now. I was gonna say I gave them almost the same layout, but I gave them the same layout, I think, in terms of the bathrooms and the bedrooms, which kind of makes sense if you think about an apartment building. That's kind of generally how they are. Um, but I did switch up like the kitchen, I think, downstairs. Here I'm bringing in more of that like international flair with like uh the uh the the art from Snowy Escape. So and this kitchen, I do think it like came out very nicely cluttered. I feel like I remembered to like put in all the clutter because sometimes kitchens are cluttered generally, I feel like by nature. And I do one thing here that I'm really like, I wish I remember this is not my idea. But I saw someone do this in a build and I do not remember once. But you take that spell book from vampires and you stick it in the counter like that. And it looks like a cookbook, like a propped up cookbook, and I like love that. And I think that's the first time I've gotten used in Bill. Also, I love this bathroom. It's not really in the screenshots because bathrooms are hard. Like bathrooms this small are really hard to get. It's not even that small of a bathroom, but it's really hard to get a good screenshot. But and there's so many other parts of this build. I just left it out. But this is one of my. I have gotten really weird. I hated bathrooms when I started building. But I feel like even before we got the bathroom clutter kit, I've discovered you can weirdly put a lot of personality in them. I don't know, but I've gotten really into colors in uh in this one. So highly super happy with that one. And then we move on to the bedroom. Like I was saying that the bedrooms, this one was more that like those boho colors. And use a lot, but like I kind of wanted them. I was trying to pull in a little bit of the fact that like these were apartments, um, and that, but like then I tried to bring in with like the clothing here that there's not as much room for storage, and like I do love how this dresser fit in. I don't know, it ended up being like this little part of the bedroom with the desk and the desk and the dresser. The way it worked out in this bedroom ended up being like one of my favorite parts of the build. Just really like how it came out. But and then we just add in some more details and make sure that this is the part I was talking about with the desk. I just really like how in this room it just became like a really cozy cluttered little spot, and it just felt like it blended really well. I don't know, it's one of those moments. I have these moments in my builds where I can like see the sim who would use it, if that makes sense. And that I just imagine our sim who thinks that Eat Pray Love, I'm sorry if like Eat Pray Love is your favorite book. I really do like the book or the movie or whatever, but I do think it's slightly problematic. We can talk about that another day. But just this idea of being like, you could see them like sitting here and like doing their travel journal or writing their notes or their, bullet journal, book blog. And I like when I get those like enough of a personality across in a build, that takes it from just being like bland interior decorating into like, into the next level. You know what I mean? And then up here, I forgot I did a custom floor down here, with the black and white, to make kind of like that really classic checkerboard. And then we kind of almost go to the extreme opposite. So upstairs we had like cozy, boho, travel, and down here is like super sleek and modern, black and white, minimalist, with a little bit of that touch of like not Japanese minimalism, but like some of the like art and stuff kind of leans towards that, because but it's very sleek and modern, very much focused on like it's definitely not minimalist, but you know what I mean, in that like black and white in terms of color. It's very black and white and very minimalist. Probably the most black and white thing, because this isn't really in clothing, sure, but like in builds, I don't tend to go black and white. I feel like I see a lot of people do that, all white or all neutrals. I very rarely do it, but it just felt like I wanted the contrast. I kind of wanted the apartments to feel contrasting. So we go for the round table, but this is kind of like the style. I almost feel like this art is like indicative of the style I was thinking of for this apartment, where it's very like not quite minimalist, but just very muted. And I do think I really like how this kitchen came out. I'm not gonna lie. I like the one upstairs, but the way this kitchen and dining and bookshelf like fit in, I feel like just worked very nicely. And like has the right level of detail while still sticking with that more minimalist vibe. I really love how this shelf fit in, because you know how like, and I think this might be a little bit because of my reshade, but these cabinets up here almost like glow, like they're backlit, and so I feel like having the lighted shelf with all the alcohol just like suited the person who would live here. And then having this more like modern shelf, but very minimally, you'll notice that it's a lot less cluttered and a lot more like thoughtfully decorated, and I wanted to convey that. And even like in the walls here being white, a little more classic, a lot more of this like metal glass feel, like, and a lot more focused on being more like an entertaining space. Like I imagine this sim being more the sim who entertained versus like the other one being like that is their home where they live. So and even like the seating area is a little bit more, seems like the seating area where you would host small parties than the seating area that you would like hang out and read your books at. And so but this is, I was talking in the art. I tried to bring in a little bit of that same, like, international feel a little bit, I guess. And it's funny because I end up using some of the same, use my favorite plant. Hello Jungle Adventure plant. You guys need to buy that pack just for that plant. There's actually a lot of good build stuff. It was something I bought really on. There's a lot of good build stuff in Jungle Adventure. I'm struggling with rug choices here because we still do not have the rugs I want. And then the bedroom I kind of carried across that same vibe where it's a little bit more, it's not as harsh as the living room, but still leans toward someone who is still a little bit more minimal and clean, and less cluttered, less homey, less any of that. But this is going to pretty much wrap up for us. So just reminding you, this will be available on the gallery, ML Plays The Sims. It will also be available shortly to download from CurseForge as soon as it's approved. And there's 6 bathrooms because there's 2 bathrooms on the floor downstairs, 2 bathrooms in each floor has like a guest bathroom and this master suite. I do swap out this mirror because it's actually custom content here, but it's very similar what I end up putting in, but it's a piece of custom content snuck in there. And then you have the bakery set up for Get to Work, and you can use it for a cafe or a restaurant. But if you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment down below and tell me what you want to see in a library, because I'm working on that right now for Willow Creek. And if you enjoy these videos and you want to keep seeing them on your little subscribe page, make sure you subscribe and turn notifications on. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all soon. Bye!